Beaded Dresses Mystery. Princesses of Chadwick Castle, Adventure Book 2. Emma Wright. Illustrations by assorted artists whose works have entered the public domain. To them the world owes a thank you. To the one true artist, thank you for not making the world just shades of grey. Dedication. To every girl who believes she can be a princess. Copyright 2014 by Emma Wright. All rights reserved. Beaded Dresses Mystery. If you think it's fun to get caught red-handed by your lady-in-waiting, you can bet it isn't, especially since Miss Stencil caught us with our foreheads pressed to the freezing bedroom floor. Who'd have thought Miss Stencil had heard us? We hadn't so much as made a peep when we slid off the bed. We hoped to find out about the clip-clopping outside our bedroom, but now we had more to worry about aside from the mystery of the pink shoes. Even though Belle and I were princesses, Miss Stencil has complete authority to discipline us. Our Queen Mother didn't have time to waste with 10- and 12-year-old girls like us. "I cannot imagine," Miss Stencil began, "what excuse you might have for disregarding my orders. Sleep time is sleep time." She pulled my arm and I followed her back to my massive four-poster bed. She pointed at the pillows and said, "Shut your eyes now, and tomorrow you both will face the music for your defiance." Belle timidly trudged closely behind me. Without another word, Miss Stencil spun on her heels and returned to her bed in the corner. No doubt she was livid. Belle and I lay very still under the goose-down blanket, and we must have dozed off, because before we knew it, Sarah, our maidservant, drew the drapes aside and the sunshine swept into my bedroom. I glanced at Miss Stencil's bed, but she was no longer there. Only her red Bible sat on her bed. Perhaps she was already building a case against us with Mother. At breakfast, Belle and I wolfed down our buttered and marmalade toasts. Breakfast didn't taste as delicious as it usually did. Even the fresh fruit lost its fragrance. We might as well have tasted stale bread. Neither of our ladies-in-waiting turned up, and Belle and I ate silently, awaiting the inevitable. When violin lessons, taught by Monsieur Montaigne, started, Miss Stencil still hadn't turned up to deliver our punishment. Belle and I discussed the matter during our snack break before art lessons. "Did you hear what Cook said this morning?" Belle whispered. "How come Belle always gets the juicy news?" "What? We're going to be boiled with the lobsters?" "Ha, no, silly. I was hiding in the hallway and Sarah flagged Cook down to chat with her, but Cook waved her off. 'No time,' she said. Cook complained that she was tired since she had to prepare more food with the many guests we've been having." "Guests? Anything else?" I asked. Belle clutched my arm. "The cleaning maids complain about working to the bone. But who are these guests? I bet they're staying in those bedrooms down the hall from ours." She nodded vigorously, her eyes wide. She'd only returned to her room that morning to change and had not been back there today. "If we ask too many questions," I said, "we're going to be chopped liver, princess or no princess. I have never seen Miss Stencil so mad. She values her sleep, and we interrupted her cycle. We'd better lie low." "I have an idea." But before Belle could tell me more, our art teacher, Madame Bertha, with her folds of grey skirt, waltzed in. "Why are the easels still in the corner?" She spoke in that high-pitched tone of hers, as if someone was pinching her nose. Her eyes scanned the room, looking for the maidservant who helped in the class. Liliana hadn't turned up for classroom duty that day. This was odd. Belle and I rushed to lift the easels, but Madame Bertha screamed, "Not for princesses to carry furniture!" She stormed out of the classroom just like that. "Why is everyone so upset these days?" Belle asked. I could tell she was afraid. Her lips quivered slightly. I shrugged. 2 manservants breezed in and set up the easels, and everything went like clockwork. But at the end of class, Mother, the Queen of Chadwick, flowed into our classroom with her royal tiara gleaming and her flouncy brocade dress swishing when she walked. Her ladies lifted her train as she swayed in. Our mother was a beauty, even if she was our blood relation. No biases. Once I painted a portrait of Mother reading, but it didn't quite capture her elegance. "Girls," Mother said in her sing-song voice. She proceeded to relate her disappointment with us for upsetting Miss Stencil, and that if we didn't turn from our disobedient ways, we would not be allowed to follow her party of noble ladies to the Royal Charity Picnic this weekend. It was my 13th birthday in 3 days, and this must have been the celebration prepared for me. I thought it was to be a surprise. Naturally, it would be heartbreaking not to be present for my own birthday party. She passed me a sprig of flowers arranged in a basket and waited for us to respond before leaving. "Yes, Mamma," Belle and I said in unison and curtsied to her. Open-air picnics were rare and could be exciting. I promised to stay true to my words and not create any further trouble for our staff. But just as we finished our high tea in the dining hall that evening, I noticed something that couldn't be explained, and my curiosity sense went up. Strange thumping noises came from our ceiling. Directly above our dining hall were the bedrooms. "What was that?" I asked Miss Stencil before I could stop myself. Belle threw me a "don't cause any trouble" glare. "What was what?" Miss Stencil looked down her nose at me and set her tea gently on the table. "Never mind," I said, and pretended to concentrate on the spoonful of strawberry soufflé in my mouth. Miss Stencil was pretending she had not heard the commotion coming from the rooms above. But why? This must be related to the strange pink shoes pattering outside my bedroom last night. On rare occasions, when we finished our schoolwork early enough, we were allowed to play with the dollhouse in Belle's room. It was decorated with wallpaper, furniture, and even had a working faucet in its kitchen. Familiarizing ourselves with how our villagers functioned and lived would help us to be wiser princesses, our father the king insisted. We didn't complain, since we especially enjoyed playing house with the dolls that had moving arms and legs. Tonight was such an evening. We were done with all our work, with hours to spare before bedtime. Perhaps it was because we had not chit-chatted as we usually did. Miss Stencil was only too glad to shoo us off to play as if we were little doves. "It's a good thing we're alone," Belle whispered, even though we were in her bedroom by ourselves. Her bedroom, too, came with a large hearth, but since Belle preferred to sleep practically in an icebox, she only had the fire blazing in the middle of winter. "You have a scheme brewing in your head?" I smiled. My sister was an open book. I trudged to the window and peered at the moor in the far distance. It had been a wet spring day. A fire would have been a welcome change. She pulled my arm and led me to the fireplace. "I don't know how to start a fire, much as I'd like to," I said. A shiver ran up my spine. The cold was getting to my bones. I reached out to the bedspread on her bed and wrapped it like a shawl over my shoulders. "I have a secret. I learned it earlier today, and I'd been meaning to share it with you, but I didn't get a chance." "Secret? Did you find the keys to the rooms down the hall?" We'd suspected that those chambers were occupied by the mysterious guests. No such luck, but she made a number 1 sign with her forefinger and then pointed at the fireplace. "I get it. You learned how to start a fire. Congratulations," I said. "Funny. Come quick." She gestured at me to hurry and glanced over to the door. Despite my attempt to stay calm, my heart rate quickened, and I, too, turned to check on the door. But when I swung my head back to face Belle, she was gone. "Belle? Hey, Belle!" But something seemed to have taken Belle away. I peeked under the bed to check if she was there. "It's not funny. You want me to get Miss Clotty here?" I said loudly, risking being heard by any of the serving staff who might be outside cleaning in the hallway. "Boo!" She tapped my shoulder, and I practically leapt out of my skin. "Where were you?" "Still mocking my secret?" "I wasn't. Okay. What did you do?" "Come." She dragged me by the arm to the empty fireplace and ducked inside it. Clearly the hearth in her room was larger than the one in mine, but what was also impressive was that we could actually stand inside it. Belle pushed the back wall and it swung around to reveal a room. A dark room. Amazing! Like my secret? Make sure you never hide in here if they want to light a fire. You could get baked, I warned her. Only if I remained in here, but it's a passage. It goes all the way in. She waved her hand toward the inner part of the dark space. Where does it go? I haven't found out. I came across it this morning after I changed out of my bedclothes. Miss Clotty left me for a bit after she'd buttoned my bodice. I could have sworn I heard someone giggle in the fireplace. I thought they were strange guests, so I went to check. That's when I made this discovery. She gestured about. We need light. I snatched the lamp Belle always had at her side table. Don't burn yourself, Belle said, as she eyed the wavering flames. I scoffed and entered the passageway in the fireplace. What if the door closes on us? Oh, I never thought of that. After I placed a shoe so the wall would not swing back accidentally, we stepped into the secret tunnel. Make sure we don't talk, Belle said, as she tugged my sleeve. If I could hear whoever was in the next room, they'd sure hear us in this passage. She was right. Even our whispery voices made an echoic sound. Do you think this will lead us to the room next door? Possibly. Shh! And she held my hand as if afraid. It wasn't a long tunnel, maybe just 20 steps total, and before we knew it, my forehead, since I was in front, hit a cold wall. I placed my ear to the stone and listened. Nothing. Considering the bearing of the tunnel, we must be close to the exterior wall of the castle. We felt the stones as we shined the lamp upon it. Finally, Belle got mad and kicked at the wall, and it gaped open. A freezing breeze swept into the passageway. The opening, like a doorway, led outside. Below us was our garden, and far off was the moor, with the skies darkening. I stepped out onto the ledge, in the hopes of seeking a way to the room next door, and almost fell to the ground floor. Thankfully, I'd grabbed the lip of the opening in time. That saved me from certain demise. If you'd have fallen, Belle said, Mother would kill you, and we both giggled. We were more nervous than we would admit. When we peered down out the opening, we noticed that the casement to the room next door was open. It was a short few steps on the ledge to the window. Belle volunteered me to be first, since I always liked to be the leader. The drapes to the room were drawn, so it was impossible to tell if I'd step into a room full of people. In any case, it was quiet enough. Whoever had stayed there earlier could be out, perhaps dining with my mother, since the adults took dinner much later than we did. I slowly pulled the green velvet drape aside and peered in. It was dim but not dark in the chamber. In the large space there were 2 beds, what looked like 2 bureaus in the corner, and a terrible mess overall. Also there was a strange contraption bearing odd-shaped objects I couldn't identify from my vantage point. I stepped into the room and stood aside so Belle could follow suit. She had the lamp hanging on the crook of her arm. On account of my gown, she almost tripped and smashed the lamp when she fell sideways. It was a good thing the oil lamp wasn't lit, as it broke to smithereens. It was ridiculous doing detective work in a full skirt with layers of tulle underneath. "What do we say if we get caught?" Belle whispered into my neck. Her breath felt ticklish, and I wanted to giggle but stopped myself. "We'd better not get caught, especially not after last night." She nodded, hitched up her skirt, and tiptoed towards the strange furniture with what looked like clothes hangers bearing strange objects on them. In the dim light, we saw jewelled stones and sequins and glittery beads sewn on the objects, each of a different hue. They were costumes the likes of which we'd never seen before, and they were gorgeous, even if their hems ran shorter than the gowns we were used to. Much craftsmanship had gone into these works of beauty, They were almost more beautiful than the dresses our royal mother wore. Almost. And they must have taken special skills to sew them. But who were these beaded dresses for? They reminded me of the work of another artist I had seen but not yet studied, a man named Degas, who painted girls dancing. There, at the bottom of the hanging clothes, was a row of pink satin shoes carelessly thrown onto pink lace. There were easily a dozen pairs of these shoes with box-shaped toes, each exquisitely beaded with pearls and diamonds. I slipped off my own slippers to try on a pair, but they were uncomfortable, so I flicked them off. "What are these?" I asked, knowing full well Belle would have the answers. That was when we heard it. Footsteps and voices laughing right outside the bedroom door. Whoever was staying here had returned, perhaps from dinner. If we rushed to the window to make our escape, we would surely plunge to the ground in our haste. Where to hide? Belle's eyes showed fear. I spread the beaded dresses aside and noticed we could hide behind them if we stayed perfectly still. In no time the guests had unlocked the door with a loud click. Would the guests notice the smashed oil lamp on the floor? But they must carry candles, as the room lit up as they entered. One of the hangers swung back and forth as we shoved the clothes back to cover the gap we stepped through. We hoped no one would notice the swinging hanger as we hid behind them. The bed creaked as if someone had sat on it. We peeked through the gaps in the clothes. There were 3 ladies in the room. "The Princess Elle will be so surprised for her birthday," one said. She sounded foreign. My ears perked up and I glanced at Belle. "The High Queen warned Mistress we must not breathe a word to the girls. They are such curious creatures. It's maddening keeping our stay a secret. It's a wonder they haven't heard our rehearsals," another voice said. "And talking of rehearsals, we'd better get dressed or we'll be late. And you know how Mistress hates it when one of us is late for the dress rehearsal. It's the last few before the grand performance. It would be a shame if the girls found out and are not pleasantly surprised when they come this Saturday." "I know. The Queen has gone through so much trouble to make this special. Let's hurry." And their feet pattered toward the hanging beaded dresses. Belle and I held our breaths. Belle's fingers dug into my arm. My eyes smarted with tears, trying to force their way out of my eyelids. What if they picked the dresses that were directly hiding us? We'd be discovered for sure. And Mother would be so disappointed we'd heard about the surprise performance she'd put together for my birthday. Her heart could be broken because of me. But was the performance the reason why the servants have been overworked? Was that why Mother had overspent? This surprise celebration must have cost more than the elaborate picnics. I held my breath some more, waiting to be caught hiding. Still, my mind worried that my birthday surprise had been the cause of all the trouble. Or was there something else going on? The footsteps approached us ever so clearly, their heels clicking on the tiled bedroom floor. The adventure and mystery continues in The Princesses of Chadwick Castle Adventure Book 3, The Lady with the Circlet. Check out Book 3 and other Emma Wright book series on Amazon and other major retailers.